What's up, everybody? Welcome into Shout, a Buffalo Bills football podcast live from Wingnutz, 1402 Millersport Highway. He's Ryan Talbot. I'm Matt Parrino. And Ryan, we are 4 days away from the NFL draft. It's already here. We're excited about our entire weekend of coverage coming up, but this is our big pre-draft preview show. We're going to get into a ton of different topics on the show tonight, and we got a couple of special guests, at least one already in the house. How are you, my friend?
I am doing great. Excited to talk all things draft, Matt. This is my favorite time of year.
All right, before we get too far in here, let's bring up the man himself, the OG, the creator of the best wing in Buffalo, Mr. Ed. How are you? Come on in here. Don't trip over anything. How you doing,
Hi,
buddy?
everybody. I'm doing good.
You doing good?
Yep.
You excited for draft week?
Oh, yeah. I'm really happy they have 10 draft picks.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Also, just hello, Wingnutz. And I do, again, want to thank God for what Wingnutz has become. Other than that, I am excited. I am hoping still to see 14 wins out of the team.
So you're going with the big prediction in April. That's aggressive. I like that about you.
Nobody's ever done it. Buffalo has never won 14 in a season. I want to see it happen.
Now, going into the draft, do you feel comfortable making that prediction right now with what they have on the roster already?
I think some of the additions are a big help, especially people that were on the team before that are coming back.
Mm-hmm.
It almost looks like they're gearing up for a championship. I'd like to believe that. I mean, since I was a kid, I believed it every season. So, I'm a Bills fan. I'll always be a Bills fan.
That's awesome.
So,
And you brought the guest book up here with you today.
I did.
The infamous guest book. What do we got there?
So
where do you open it to?
This is the Wingnutz guest book, folks. In case anybody doesn't know what it is, each building gets its own book. And the idea is, if you're eating our food, is to put your name, where you're from, and what you thought of the food. It's basically a little review, and you can write as much or as little as you want. It's all up to you. This is for you. The reason I brought it here tonight is I wanted to show you that you're in good company. This top, is the camera seeing this?
Yeah, they can see it.
Signature right there is Dan Marino.
Dan Marino.
Yeah.
How many people are a fan of Dan Marino in this house here?
Well,
some people. There's some Dolphins fans back there. Now, he was in here last year when the Dolphins came to play, right?
Yeah, the weekend the Dolphins were in Buffalo. He was sitting at the end of the bar having wings, very quiet. Nobody even knew he was there. Someone had to point it out, and I went over and talked to him for about 10 minutes and got him to sign the book.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's the nicest guy ever.
So really come into Wingnutz, sign the guest book, experience the wings. It's a true experience.
Yep.
And listen, multiple locations. 1402 Millersport Highway. It's always bumping here at the Bar and Grill in the new airport location.
On Genesee Street.
We did our first show there last month.
Right.
We'll be back in May. It's awesome, man. Big things going on with Wingnutz.
Oh, I love the fact that you're alternating now. This is so cool. So, but I appreciate you and Ryan big time. We love doing it with you. Just keep it up.
All right.
It's awesome.
Give it up for Ed. Thanks, buddy. All right, Ryan. So I'm gonna throw a crazy idea at you. I was talking with our insider tech subscribers this week about something a little bit different, a different idea. We do all these mock drafts in the lead up to the draft, and one thing that kind of keeps sitting with me is a conversation that we had with Brandon Bean a couple months ago when we asked him about, all right, you keep coming up short against the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes goes and scores 32 points in the AFC title game. You need to find a game wrecker. And, he was kind of prophetic in when he said those game wreckers don't grow on trees. We've seen this offseason already some big potential fish. Max Crosby in Las Vegas, Myles Garrett in Cleveland, signing big-time extensions with their teams. So I got to thinking, why not try for a big fish in the draft? And the biggest fish in the draft for a game wrecker on defense, Abdul Carter. Now, how high would they have to get up, the Bills, to draft Abdul Carter?
Yeah, probably like number 3 in the draft, Matt.
Number 3 overall. This is a guy that if you go and do a deep dive into Lance Zierlein, who does a great job on NFL.com, he grades these prospects every single year. He gives him a 7.5 0. There hasn't been a 7 or higher since Will Anderson a couple years ago. And I think a few before that, you got to go back to 2019 to find a pass rusher that is graded out this high. So I thought, why not package your entire slate of picks, the 1 and 2 this year, 1 and 2 next year, some additional picks late in this draft, go up and get out Abdul Carter at number 3. Now, this is kind of a hypothetical in a dream world. I don't think that this really plays out for several reasons. Number one, Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, the clock is ticking in New York for them. They have to make an impact in this draft, find legitimate game-influencing players, and Abdul Carter is one of those guys. But on the other hand, if you want to set yourself up, if you don't like any of the quarterbacks in this draft, and outside of Cam Ward, a lot of people are talking about there's not a lot to like, especially in that range. Maybe if you're Brandon Beane, you could sell Joe Schoen on here's a bunch of different picks. You can now have some mobility to go up, not only in this year's draft class to get up from 30 or wherever you want to get to, and especially next year's draft class to get the quarterback that you want. Again, not very realistic, but I do think Brandon Beane has to get creative in how he's going to land this game record, because right now at 30, I don't see one that exists that could be a day one impact player on the defensive side of the ball. What do you think?
No, I think you're spot on. This is not a deep draft class in terms of impact players, game-changing type of players, but the problem is to go from 30 to 3, it would be
historic,
something that's never been done. You don't almost have to tell Joe Schoen that you'd have a job in Buffalo for as soon as he got fired for making that deal.
So that's the thing. If I'm Joe Schoen, I'm thinking like with both sides of my brain here. On one hand, you can make a deal that could potentially help for years to come, and then if it doesn't work out, hey, you're probably going to end up back in Buffalo anyway. Hand them Abdul Carter, and you're off to the races.
Yeah, it sounds great on paper for sure, but with Joe Schoen, I think Abdul Carter, even with the pass rushers they already have in New York, it's too tempting to even pass up when you're playing for your team's playing for your job going forward. They can probably survive 1 year with Russell Wilson at quarterback and then go heavy with the defensive lineman. We saw how well that worked for Philadelphia in the Super Bowl. If the Giants can replicate that in a division now with Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts, it could help them win some close games against a team like that and really save some jobs both in the front office and with head coach Brian Daboll.
So all, fun aside, realistic trade up potential, right? Like you're talking with the 30th pick, probably the highest get up in the draft is 15. I mean, we've seen it over the years. Teams try to get up for a guy that they really like. Got that high 15 picks, but especially to the early 20s. The big problem with this draft class when it comes to trading up, if you're not trading up for like one of these premier players, I had Dane Brugler on from The Athletic, as the Beast draft guide every year, does a great job. He said that he only has 12 first-round grades on his board, and teams that he's talked to around the league, some have less than that. Yeah. And so if you're sitting here talking about maybe 10, 11, 12 true difference-making type of players, the Bills are probably sitting in more of a sit and wait it out, see what you have, and maybe, I know a lot of Bills fans probably don't want to hear this, that are staying up till midnight on day one of the draft, but maybe a trade back scenario.
I think a trade back's more realistic than a trade up. If you were trading up to the midway point of this draft, there'd have to be someone you're sold on, maybe a Will Johnson out of Michigan, but there's injury concerns there. I think he is one of the best corners in this draft. I don't know if he's worth trading up for, though, to that point where there's going to be some other guys with question marks that you could potentially get at 30 with injury histories. There's also Trey Amos of Ole Miss that I think you could potentially get at 30 or make a slight trade up to go and get him. So it's tough in this draft class. It's not a particularly strong one. A lot of the draft analysts have said you can get a lot of good players in that 30 to 60 range or 30 to 90 range, those middle rounds, but difference makers are going to be hard to come by.
We'll talk a little bit more about different trade scenarios here in a minute. Is my guy done with his chicken wings yet out there? Let's bring up Sal Capaccio, WGR 550 in the house. Kind enough to come out and hang with us tonight. It's a big week, Sal.
I don't want to take his mic. I don't want to take your mic. It's all good. Love it.
No, you can hold. I got the mic stand here, so I could reach across. You could hold on to that mic, and I'll give you this one.
I was listening. It's all right. I was listening to Ed talk about Dan Marino being here, and people didn't realize I had a great story. I was down in Florida years ago. I was bartending, sports bar, and it was a place where a lot of people would come down for former athletes, things like that. And we're in there one time. I'm doing trivia back and forth with all these guys, right? It's really great. And guy started asking me all these questions. He's like, yeah, I'm a big Michigan fan and things like that. So I started asking him questions. So he's about to leave and he goes, hey, I know that you've been doing trivia all night, but I don't know if you realized I'm Elvis Gerback. I'm like, what?
Ooh.
Now, listen, who didn't know Elvis Gerback, the former quarterback, by sitting there? I felt like such an idiot. For an hour, I was talking with this guy, football trivia. I had no idea who he was.
He was a Kansas City Chief, right?
He was, yeah, he was. And he actually, I think he played with Desmond Howard at Michigan, I think is what it was. But anyway, I can understand why people would know that, but that made me feel like an idiot. So if you didn't recognize Dan Marino here, I totally feel you.
I love it. You could check out Sal, WGR 550. It's always game day in Buffalo. And you have your own event that we should give a little love to coming up on Tuesday night. I'm excited to come out to that.
Yeah, more wings. Look, there's where for your North Towns, South Towns, there's always great places. This is a great spot to go, obviously. Thanks a lot for the wings. I just tried Alicia's. Amazing. The original. It's incredible. And I'm going to be at Sports City Pizza Pub Tuesday night on the west side. I live over in the city, and we're going to be doing it at Sports City Pizza Pub. Same kind of thing here. Chris Trapasso from CBS is going to be joining me. We're going to be breaking down the first round. Everybody's welcome. Come on out. And everybody who comes Tuesday night, we're starting at 7 o'clock. Somebody, you're going to be eligible. Somebody's walking away with a signed Keon Coleman jersey, and someone's walking away with a Jim Kelly Hall of Fame plaque. We're giving stuff away.
Wow, the big time
Sports City
swag.
Pizza Pub Tuesday
I like
night.
it.
You got
All
it.
right, so I got a topic that I want to throw at you here. We talked about this a little bit on the show this week, and I want to get your take on it. The Bills have the number 30 pick, and I think if you poll the majority of fans, defense is the priority going into this draft. Finding difference makers on the defensive line at cornerback, specifically cornerback 2. If there's a potentially elite offensive player on the board there and an elite defensive player, which way are you kind of leaning if you're Brandon Beane?
It's defense. I think this draft is all defense the first 2 days, rounds 1, 2, and 3. I obviously, we don't know the Bills board. Let's say they have a Luther Burden or Matthew Golden, a wide receiver. Let's just say they have them ranked 10th on their board and they've fallen all the way down. I don't know if you could pass that up, but I firmly believe the Bills are ready to go defense. They need defense. Look at what they've done this offseason. The offense hasn't been touched because it doesn't need to be. They've added one offensive player. That's been basically Joshua Palmer, Laviska Shenault as well, but they don't need to add anywhere else. They just need maybe a wide receiver. They've done that in free agency. And if they did draft a offensive playmaker, that's the only spot you could see it coming from, right? But yet, Matt, who's he playing over? He's not playing over Khalil Shakir. They're not going to overdraft Keon Coleman, and they just paid Josh Palmer $9 million a year. So I don't see it. It is defense. I think the Bills, we go into Saturday, guys, when we get down to one Bills drive on Saturday, I don't think they've taken an offensive player yet.
Wow, that's a hot take.
Yeah, I think it's all defense the first 2 nights.
So, Ryan, you want to chime in?
I'm actually right there with Sal. I think in the first 3 rounds, you're looking at something along the lines of cornerback, defensive tackle, and then it could be an edge rusher with that other pick. Those are 3 big priorities. When you look at the players that they've talked to throughout this draft process, there's a lot of guys that fit into that pick range, whether it's a Trey Amos in round 1 or if a Kenneth Grant falls down. They love Joshua Farmer out of FSU. Could be an ideal, day 2 pick. So there's so many different combinations there, but I do think defense and defensive heavy is what you're looking at the first 2 days.
And I'll go a step further. I'll say this. I'll even make the prediction that I think it's defensive tackle first. I think the Tre'Davious White signing tells you a lot about what the Bills think, which is they have a veteran now that they can kind of bridge the gap. Dane Jackson can bridge the gap. They don't need a corner as imperatively as they need a defensive tackle. Right now on the Bills roster, they have really 4 defensive tackles eligible to play week 1. And one's name is Zion Logue. So he's probably not going to be on the team, 53. Let's say he doesn't make it. It's Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, and Dwayne Carter. They have to find another defensive tackle. So I think that by them signing Tre'Davious White and Dane Jackson, it's telling you we're going to wait maybe a round or 2 for corner because we'll figure that out a little bit more later. We got to have a defensive tackle early.
I think there's a lot of fans that are fearful about that approach, though, because I think what this regime has gotten itself into trouble with at times is relying on guys that they've had from previous stops. For years, it was Carolina guys, and it's just so ironic that Dane Jackson spent his 1 year away from Buffalo in Carolina. But you bring these 2 guys, and I think that the problem is it gives the coaching staff a sense of comfort knowing that they know that these guys can at least meet a certain floor. I don't know if you're going into this year, take out whatever they do in the draft, and you're really excited about Dane Jackson or Trey White as your second cornerback. And honestly, I don't think that either one of those moves should impact any of their approach on draft night.
So I don't think it does. I think they still have to get a young guy early. I just think they feel more comfortable getting a guy who knows the system and says we can be a little more patient. Roster-wise and numbers-wise, they have to have a defensive tackle. Look, I get it. You get it all the time. I get it. We get told by people, we get asked by people, why do they go back to the well? They re-sign these guys. They've been there. Look, the reality is every team does this. Andy Reid does it in Kansas City. He brings guys back that maybe he knows. The Eagles do it. What's unique?
Mike Edwards to Kansas City.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Mike Edwards went back to Kansas City. What's unique about the Bills is they've had a GM and head coach for 8 years, so you have more of those guys. It's not unique to bring people in. Anybody who owns a business here, someone walks out the door and goes, and they've been a great employee, and they go somewhere else to work, but all of a sudden they need a job again. You're like, dude, I loved you working for me. Come on back. This is not unique in how they operate.
The thing with Trey White, too, and I've seen a lot of pushback on social media. Ryan and I talked about this as a potential outcome earlier in the offseason for a couple of reasons. Number one, we haven't really truly seen Trey White 2 years off of an injury yet, right? So there's still, to me, some upside with a former all-pro caliber player. Is he ever going to be 2019 Trey White again? Maybe not. But I think it's at the very least worth bringing him to training camp, seeing what's left, and then going from there. Dane Jackson can play in your defense at a certain level, and you have one of the great young cornerbacks in the NFL right now in Christian Benford. The really interesting question is, we'll talk more about Trey in a second, how set do you think they are at safety right now? Because I had the Bills mocked a safety earlier this offseason, and I had a lot of pushback, like, I don't want the Bills to draft a safety. I don't know. I don't think that they're set at safety. I think they have to go out and maybe add one.
The question is, what do the Bills think they have at safety? Not really what we think, right? Because there's a lot of people who aren't convinced in Cole Bishop, and that's fine. But the fact is, let's look at the history of this organization. Since Sean McDermott has been here, the one thing that has been always constant, they do not play young safeties.
Right.
They play veteran safeties, guys who know the system. Cole Bishop would have been the closest they came last year throughout training camp. He had an injury if he would have. But think about it. Micah and Jordan, they were 4 years in when they signed him in 2017. And then who'd they go out and get? Kurt Coleman, Dean Marlowe, bringing Dean Marlowe back. They bring in Taylor Rapp, who was in the NFL for 4 years. I just don't think the Bills, and then they signed Derek Forrest this offseason. To me, the Bills feel they have a veteran in Taylor Rapp. And what did he say? What did he say to us? McDermott said to us at the owners' meetings, we sat there with him, and he said, Taylor Rapp, people don't realize all the things he does for us that matter. He is the Terrell Bernard of our safeties in our secondary. So he's playing. We know that. They just drafted Cole Bishop in the second round. He's going to play. I just think they would have to feel that they have to upgrade from that. And I don't think, given the asset it would take and the resources they've already used, that they would do that. But I do think they're going to draft one, Matt. I just don't think it's going to be that early. I think it'll be day 3, maybe even 4th round, because they're going to need a guy, because in this defense, you have to have safeties.
I also am glad that you bring up the Forrest point, because to me, he fits the Jordan Poyer model, right? Somebody that couldn't really get on the field in his former stop, has gotten rave reviews from coaches at his spot there, guys that they know intimately, and that there's upside there. So this is a guy that now comes to Buffalo as a veteran. Ryan, what do you think about Forrest potentially being in the mix for one of those depth jobs?
I actually like Forrest's game quite a bit, Matt. The previous coaching regime, Ron Rivera, he played very well there. It was just the new coaching regime, some injuries backed him up. But he reminds me a little bit of Taylor Rapp, the way that he plays, a very physical, a very aggressive type of safety, which there's good and bad to that, obviously, with injuries. But I think a fresh start here in Buffalo is going to do him well. They brought back DeMar Hamlin, but Hamlin's going to be in the mix for that backup job, too. I think they like their top 4 safeties right now. But as Sal said, you're going to draft someone day 3, probably bring in, you have to have a 90-man roster, a few UDFAs as well, and then let them compete, because after that top 2, nothing's really set in stone.
Yeah, and let's remember, the Bills have Cam Lewis, too, who they like a lot at safety. He's the backup nickel, but he really plays more safety than backup nickel, because there's more opportunities sometimes for him to play safety, right? So he's right there. And I think as far as Derek Forrest is concerned, to me, he's really signed to be a special teams guy who can help safety in a pinch. Let's remember the new rule for the NFL. They moved the kickoff touchback up. Right. There's going to be more kickoff returns. The Bills, I think, judging by what McDermott told us again at the owners' meetings, they're going to have to concentrate a little bit more on having a few of those core special teams guys.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about throw a scenario at you before we get you out of here. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We're at Millersport Highway 1402, Millersport Wingnutz, the home of the best chicken wings in Buffalo for my money. And we
Glad you brought me up when you did, by the way, because I've been watching the Yankees blow an 8-4 lead in the ninth. I'd be swearing, but I'm here, so I'm not going to do that.
Good.
So
good.
If I didn't come up here, I'd be over there, and people think I was a crazy person.
And
I am already. But
I specifically started the show after you ate your chicken wings too, because you got a little bit on your face.
Oh my God!
Which
yeah,
that's what we like though. They're so good that you just like you tear through them. You don't have time for napkins.
I know.
I appreciate that. So the scenario that I kind of want to throw at you here is sitting there at 30. What are some of the names, but specific? You mentioned defensive tackle already.
Yeah.
That you're running to the podium if this guy's there after like what you've learned and studied over the draft period.
I think the first guy I get to might be Derek Harmon from Oregon. I really like Derek Harmon. I think he fits exactly what the Bills would like in a defensive tackle. I think Tyleik Williams is a guy that the Bills, but I think he could be there at 30. I don't think Derek Harmon is there at 30. After Derek Harmon, I think it's interesting. Does Walter Nolan go early? The thing about Walter Nolan is he's not even 300 pounds.
Right.
And I think the Bills want to get bigger at defensive tackle. As great as Walter Nolan has been, he's a fantastic player. I think the Bills are looking for a bigger, bulkier defensive tackle to play what's called the one technique. That's more the guard or shading the guard near the center to allow Ed Oliver to be able to penetrate as an undersized guy. So I think Tyleik Williams fits there. There's a few other guys I think that they could probably look at, but to me, Derek Harmon would kind of be my dream guy for the Bills in that spot.
Last mock draft, I had Derek Harmon as that pick. I loved his game. I love his fit in this system, how he plays. He just seems like a perfect fit for what Sean McDermott has looked for since coming over to the Bills. Not a traditional one tech, but a guy that is a game wrecker, can get into the backfield against the quarterbacks, great against the run. It would be a dream scenario. Most likely you'd have to trade up a few spots for a Harmon. Kenneth Grant, there's a lot of upside there. It's interesting. I see mock drafts where he's going at 20. I see somewhere he falls into round 2. That just goes back to our talking point, Matt, about this draft class. There's only a handful of really game changers. And then after that, it's going to be how teams prioritize their board and what players that they feel are going to be difference makers for their team. It could be a fit at cornerback. It might be more of a man versus zone. It could be what they look for in traits as well.
My worry about defensive tackle at 30 outside of Harmon and Grant, I would throw him in there as well, is, and if they take Tyleik Williams, I think it's fine. The problem is defensive tackle is so deep in this draft, and these guys are so much closer together. I think the drop-off at cornerback is more dramatic in terms of what will be available there at 56. So to me, it probably makes more sense to kind of align your board to get that cornerback at 30 because of the drop-off. The problem there is the Bills have done this before where they've drafted for positional need in the first round. Kyrie Elam is the
100%.
most recent example.
Yes.
You almost can't do that.
No, and this goes back to the point I made about signing Trey White and signing Dane Jackson. I think you're right. The drop-off is there. So you know what? You secure yourself. You give yourself a little bit of insurance. Don't worry about the drop-off. We got guys who'll be there. Then maybe you get Siobhan Ravel, who is coming off an ACL injury, but he's got all the traits, right? Could Maxwell Harrison last that? But maybe the Bills have 2 second-round picks. Maybe they trade up one of them to get, maybe they pick at 30 and then get 34, 35. Right now they're at 56. Maybe they pick at 40 and they get one of those cornerbacks. So the one position we haven't talked about, so I said they're going to address too, is edge.
Right.
I still think they need an edge rusher. Let's remember, Michael Hoyt is also suspended 6 games. So right now they only have really 4 guys. They like to rotate there, and they're going to want to give Joey Bosa a little bit of load management, right? So I think that edge is also in play on day 1 or on day 2.
It's definitely in play, and I think a guy like Landon Jackson from Arkansas is one of those. Like, the problem is he might go top of the first round. If you don't take him at 30 or on a small trade back, I don't know if you can necessarily get back up high enough to get him where he's going to go. Now, there's a couple other ones. What's the kid's name from Ohio State?
Oh yeah.
Tatua, I can't pronounce his last name. JT.
Yeah. And you have Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M, right?
Yep,
I think he's a guy that you could look at as there.
Traits for sure. Production wasn't there, but the Bills might roll the dice on athletic traits
Ryan
at some
hates
point.
Shamar Stewart.
I was not a fan of the possibility of him at 30. 4.5 sacks over 3 seasons. It's great that you can beat your man, that you can get there, but you have to be able to finish as well. And the fact that he wasn't able to do that, that's a little worrisome to me. So, I like what they have after adding Bosa. Greg Rousseau. If you add someone like that to the mix, I just don't know if you're going to get that instant production that you would want to have ideally.
That is, I think it's so funny. The Bills love traits.
Right.
Josh Allen was a traits guy. When everybody was so polarizing, they loved everything about him, his traits.
Rousseau.
Craig Rousseau is a traits guy. Spencer Brown is a huge traits guy, right? Tommy Doyle, unfortunately, obviously the injury. I could see it. When you're talking about how many guys are first-round grades, not a lot. Let's go with the traits guy. We can put him behind Bosa and Rousseau and Epinesa. Let him work. I agree with you. It scares me, no production, but they do have a history of drafting traits.
I'll be interested to see, too, what the Bills do in their trade backs to also give themselves some maybe additional picks in 2026 to be able to get a little bit more aggressive. Like if you can add a third or a fourth round pick in next year's draft with some of the moves back, it doesn't help you necessarily right now. But if you have a bucket at 30 and there's so much bulk of talent at that spot that there might be 10 guys on Brandon Beane's board where at 30, I'm happy with any of these 10 guys. I'm willing to move back 10 spots. And for a team that wants to get back into the first round and maybe get one of those quarterbacks for a fifth-year option, now you're willing to give up not only draft capital in this year's draft, but maybe a pick in next year's draft too.
Yeah, and listen, the Bills have 10 picks. Can 10 guys make this roster?
No.
I'm not really sure. But I will say I thought that last year, and they used all 10.
Right.
They used 10 picks last year, but not everybody made the roster. Daquan Hardy didn't at the end of the day. He was put on the practice squad. Travis Clayton was an international guy. He didn't make it. So 8 out of the 10 last year actually made the roster. I don't know if 10 guys can make the roster this year. So I don't know if Brandon Beane goes and says, you know what? Let's try and get some picks for next year. 10 guys can't make the roster. But you also have to look at the salary cap. They're paying so much to the top guys. You have to get cheaper labor, and that's where you get those guys and these rookie contracts.
This is awesome stuff, man. Thank you so much for coming out here tonight.
Of course,
Awesome
absolutely.
stuff. Make sure you check out Sal at Sports City Pizza Pub Tuesday night. Thank you. It's always game day in Buffalo. Did you know it's always game day in Buffalo?
We're always trying to make it game day in Buffalo, but Matt Bove and I obviously doing the podcast there. But come on out, Sports City Pizza Pub Tuesday night. Once again, everybody who comes, you get a chance to win a signed Keon Coleman jersey or a Jim Kelly Hall of Fame plaque. And we're going to have wings just like here. We're going to have beer and drinks and watching games. It's going to be awesome.
Awesome stuff from Sal. Give it up for my man right here. Thanks, buddy.
Great stuff.
Thank you. All right, Ryan, I think we should bring some fans up here. What do you think?
100%.
You like that? I mean, that's what we really do here. I think we got my man Charlie's in the house. Why don't you start us off? He's got this like fresh mustache going on right now. When he walked in, he was standing next to Ed, and I was just like, it was like the Spider-Man meme, right? They were like pointing at each other. What's up, buddy? I hate when you come on though, because I got to tilt the camera up so high. Oh no, you fit in right there beautifully. How you doing, buddy?
Great. How you doing?
I'm doing great. That mustache is majestic. I mean, way to bring that out in the middle of April. It's not even November.
No, it was done for a special reason. So I do the Fight for Air climb, and my dad passed from lung cancer, and it was a staple of his. When I grew up, he always had a mustache. So last minute, 2 weeks prior to the climb, I decided to let it grow.
So did we meet our goal on the I saw you passing that around on Facebook.
Yeah, we did. We did reach over $1,000, which was great. Our team, which we were Gary's goofy group, we reached our team goal, and we had 4 participants make their VIP. So that's 716 or more.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations. That's really cool. All right, so we got draft coming up in 5 days here. What are you thinking? What do you got?
God, Ryan, I bother Ryan a lot.
Never a bother.
You sure you wanted to give that out to me? You know, be my friend and everything. I mean, I'm Mr. Draft. I love talking the draft. I've gone back and forth with Ryan. I'm like, oh, they need a defensive tackle. That's number one. Well, they haven't addressed cornerback, and they've kind of done that with Jackson and White coming back. It's so tough. I think they're going to, take some rounds, juggle the picks, and they're going to end up moving up in the second. I still have a feeling they're going to take one of the defensive tackles, unless, like Sal said, and Ryan, Harmon's there. You take Harmon. It's the no-brainer. But I definitely think you'd have to think Amos is in play at corner. And then do they address at some point the running back? What is going on with let James cook? He's cooking over there. He's listening to his brother. What happened with his brother?
It's tough. So I got a crazy take about the James Cook thing. I think it's much to do about nothing. I think he's going to show up for the final year of his contract. I think he's going to be all smiles in training camp. Not going to say much, but he never says much. Right. And I think that, listen, this is a huge year for James Cook. Like, he has a chance to set himself up for a massive payday. And I think he wants to, for as much as he's putting the pressure on the Bills, Ryan, I think that he wants to show up, have the kind of season that he wants to have. And then on the other side of it, if he goes and signs a big deal elsewhere, the Bills are going to, come out on the other end of that looking good too, because they're going to get a comp pick out of it.
Yeah, 100%. And with his salary a little over $5 million, you can't really hold out at this point. I'm not anticipating that. Like you said, he's going to show up. He's going to try to replicate the tape that he had last year and get that big payday either from Buffalo or another team.
Yeah, I still see them taking somebody late. Maybe it's a practice squad guy, but still they address it and kind of see where the whole situation goes. Not going to happen at 15 mil. We know that Saquon is a different beast. So I still think they address it, but I think Harmon's the pick. If he's there at 30, they trade back and they go get Farmer, Phillips, the guys that are bigger west out of Indiana, just because they need that one technique. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Wide receiver, they can add one, but I don't think it's a necessity like Sal's saying, you wait till day 3. But cornerback, defensive tackle, I'd be surprised about linebacker. I think there is the need, obviously, with Milano's situation. Is there somebody on this team? Yes, Dorian Williams is here, but he's not 3 downs. Do they go get another guy that can play 3 downs? I know a lot of people here, since we're right down the road, like Dolak. Dolak I think he's just a prospect that people are waiting to see what happens, especially the draft. But he showed up at his pro day here in UB with Buffalo, and where does he go? That's the guy I'm interested to see in the later day 3. I think he could be a steal.
Awesome stuff, brother. Thanks for coming out, man. You killed it. Give it up for Charlie here.
Thanks, sir. You did great.
All right, Ryan. I wanted to talk about Harmon real quick before we go. If anybody else wants to come up, come on up right off to the side here. We'll bring you on. We'll talk a little NFL draft. I want to ask you about Derek Harmon, because I feel like there's he's a draft crush for a lot of Bills mafia, rightfully so. He's a good player. There's a wide range of outcomes for this player. I think there's some people that think he could go as high as 10, can go somewhere in the teens. Maybe he lasts into the 20s to one of those teams. I've seen him mocked pretty much everywhere. The thing about him is he started playing his position a little bit late in the game. He's only got 1 year of legit tape at that position. Now, it was a great season playing across from Jamari Caldwell there, who's another day 3, maybe potential target for the Bills. What do you make of Harmon? And if you had to guess right now, where do you think he goes in this draft?
Yeah, I think Harmon goes in the top 15 in this draft. I think just the traits, the ability, what he's shown in that 1 year, it's promising enough that teams would sit there and say he can be a game wrecker. He was a game wrecker at times at Oregon, and the fact that he did that with Caldwell, who I think is going to be a great player as well in this league and a steal for some team on day 3. You look at the traits, you look at the athleticism, he's going to be on some team's list where we've already talked. There's not a ton of true difference makers in this draft class. So some teams are going to sit there and say, we like what he projects to be, and we think in time he can be a difference maker.
Yeah, I think there's some teams in the 20s that are going to get real aggressive. I mean, you look at a team like the Rams, a team like the Packers, who might want to get up into the teens to maybe beat some of these other teams to get a guy. Because, if you think about it, Mason Graham's probably going to be a top 10 pick, which is interesting. He's another side conversation. The measurables are interesting. He's a beast. He was great at Michigan. Everybody thinks he's going to be great. But after him, it's really going to be between what you think. Harmon, Grant, maybe throw Nolan into the mix. Whoever you like in that group, it's going to allow a GM to maybe get a little aggressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Go out and get the guys that you love in this class. If there is someone that you love at that point, especially if you're a playoff team like Green Bay and you think that that's someone that can take you over the top.
All right, let's bring in our buddy Mark Bouchard in the house here. What's up, buddy?
Come on in.
So great story about Mark. He's a huge shrimp fan. He loves shrimp, right? Every time I see him, whether it be we do the shows out at where do we do the shows out? New York, the Beer Project for Channel 4. He's always ordering the Boom Boom shrimp. And apparently, AJ, the man himself, made you a special order of Boom Boom shrimp tonight. Is that true?
Yes, he did. And it was fantastic.
They're fantastic?
Fantastic.
All right. So give me your big draft take here. What do you think going into next week?
Well, you guys kind of have me thinking, do I want Buffalo to trade up or trade down? Because your show a couple weeks ago, you had them trading down. Well, I really want them to trade up because we really need that game wrecker. And my two game wreckers are Kenneth Grant and Derek Harmon. Derek Harmon I really want. But how much draft capital do they want to spend? But we need somebody who can terrorize Mahomie, especially in the playoffs. Then my next two are cornerback. We definitely need cornerback. That would be Maxwell Harrison or Trey Amos. That would probably be, in round two, probably rounds 2 and 3. And then later in the round, probably 3, I'd like to see a wide receiver, and that would be Jalen Royals, which I know big fan. And
you converted him, Ryan. He's been talking about Royals now. I think Royals is probably an early day 2 pick, probably like the second round. What do you think?
Oh yeah, 100% round 2 pick in my opinion, but could be there at 56 or in that second pick that the Bills have. So it'll be interesting to follow. If there was a receiver to go after, he would be my pick for the Bills on day 2 of the draft.
Like Sal was saying earlier that it's got to be defense early in this draft. I agree with the take unless you have a specific vision. See, the problem is if you're going to draft one of these guys with one of your first 3 picks, and these are very critical picks in a year where you got to find difference makers, it can't be draft a rookie wide receiver and then see how it plays out in training camp. It's got to be like, we're drafting this guy because we have a day 1 role for him. Into Sal's earlier point, I don't know if there is a role for Royals right off the jump.
No, not right off the jump. My other wide receiver is going to be Luther Burden third. So I'd like to see, but I think that's going to be, in the later rounds, later picks. But we need a defense. We need the D line big time because if Bean was watching what Philadelphia did to Kansas City, that's what we need to do to Mahomie.
What would you think about edge, defensive tackle, and then cornerback in that order with the picks that they have right now at their disposal? If those are the positions that end up being called in, is that where you think the Bills should go in this draft?
Yeah, well, do you mean like in that specific
order?
If the right guy falls, yeah, absolutely. If you look at a lot of the 30 visits, the private workouts, a lot of the cornerbacks are round 2 players, so it would make sense. Benjamin Morrison, someone that we haven't mentioned yet tonight out of Notre Dame, would have been a first-round pick if not for the hip injury.
Dying to get that one in there.
I am
guy?
Big Notre
yeah.
Go Irish.
Just wait until you hear about the safety and then the quarterback that he wants on the target in the 6th round.
No,
go ahead.
Just messing with you. Kyle Hamilton's the last Notre Dame guy that I really pounded the table for, and we've seen the type of career he's had. Obviously, first-round player there, though. But Morrison was a first-round player before the hip injury that he suffered. I think that any team that drafts him will get a steal. Same thing with, Revel Jr. I think that out of East Carolina, he's another player that was projected to be a first-round pick. So if you have the guys that you feel are comfortable with playing, you could bring those rookies along slowly, get them integrated in due time.
Defensive tackle, edge, first round. And I think we need to trade up. Just depends upon what it's going to cost, but I think Bean just has to get aggressive and just do it.
Mark, thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming out. All right, come on in, bud. He's got his little Josh Allen jersey on. He's ready to go. He's standing off to the side for a little while. What's up, man?
Hi, Dad.
Did I hit you in the face?
What? Yeah, kinda.
My bad. Why don't you tell everybody what we did last night?
Oh, yeah. We went to my uncle's house to watch the new Captain America movie.
What would you give it on a scale of 1 to 10? And you got to be critical here, okay? Don't just throw out a 10 score. I'm not into that, okay? I know you like the superhero movies, but just don't throw out a 10 to throw out a 10. Give me an honest to goodness score here.
9.2.
9.2. I wouldn't have given it a number over 5.
Ooh.
It was terrible.
Well, it's also because you're dad.
Okay. Oh, it's because I'm dad. Okay. I'm a tough grader. All right. So the draft's coming up here. What position do you want them to take? Wide receiver, defensive tackle, edge rusher, or safety?
Cornerback too.
Yeah, probably quarterback.
Quarterback? What about this
he's
dude?
bad.
Okay. All right. Great stuff, buddy. Hit the road. You want to come in too, dear? Wow, the full kid experience here tonight. Hello.
Hi.
So show everybody at home. Go like this. Go E. So she walked in today and I was like, whoa. You're missing some teeth. What movie is that from?
Home Alone, yeah.
Home Alone.
You nailed it. Good job. All right, who do you think the Bills are going to draft? We got to get out of here. Wide receiver, defensive tackle, edge rusher, or safety?
Safety.
Safety, the last one. There you go. All right, good job, Kennedy. I'll see you later. All right, before we get out of here, I'll give you the final word, buddy. What do you got?
Yeah, final word. Join us on draft night. We'll be at Turning Stone Casino. We'll be live around 9 p.m. on all the streaming sites, and then we'll be back again after the Bills make their first round pick.
If they make their first round pick. But we're going to do a show no matter what happens. Make sure you come out to Turning Stone and make sure all week long you get right here to Wingnutz. You can come to the Millersport location or to the new location over on Genesee. Crush some wings, some great drinks on tap, some great cocktail specials. They're going to get me one of those. All right, for Ryan Talbot, I'm Matt Parrino. We will see you this week. It's draft week, finally here. Take care, everybody.